Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Tanner's Favorite Things. Today we have a pretty interesting unboxing, well, interesting to me. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we have in this speaker-shaped box. Alright, what do we have in this container? We have a Vintage Sunn speaker. This is what's known as a Sunn Transducer 128G-SP 12-inch guitar speaker. You can see that this is an 8-ohm speaker and it has a 60-watt rating, which is pretty high for a 70s era or 80s era speaker. And then you see the part number. So what's the deal with this speaker? Well, this is a vintage speaker and I have a story that goes along with it that I'll share with you shortly, but it was a repair. This is a brand new cone. And boy is it tight. This speaker came out of a cabinet that I found thrifting. I found a set of speakers which are commonly called white van speakers. And you might ask, white van speakers, what the hell kind of speakers are those? Well, these are speakers that existed in the 70s, 80s, maybe just the 80s, 90s, and into the 2000s. And I'm sure there's some sort of iteration of this kind of scheme, if you want to call it that, where a Chinese speaker manufacturer will make a ton of just one type of speaker, usually like a 12-inch or sometimes even a 15-inch woofer, and they'll put it in a shoddy cabinet, put some sort of fancy name on it, and call it something like air-cooled or water-cooled or something like that. And they'll sell them out of the back of white vans. The salespeople are recruited, I assume, on the docks or somewhere where these things come in, and cut out the middleman. And that's kind of the whole sales pitch with the white van speakers, is that, hey, I have this really cheap set of speakers here. I got them directly from the manufacturer, so there's no middleman here. I'm just trying to cut my losses. And that's kind of the sales pitch. Are they good speakers? No, they're terrible. Usually the components inside of these speakers are just straight up garbage, and the cabinets themselves may look like they have a nice build, but if you really take a look, they're just terrible construction and terrible materials as well. I paid 20 bucks for this pair of speakers, and I just kind of took a flyer on it. I became educated on the whole white van speaker because of this. I had no idea that that existed prior to picking these speakers up. But interestingly enough, I took them home, and when I took them apart, I found something very, very interesting inside. I didn't find a cheap Chinese no-name speaker. I found this speaker and a matching pair. So let me go ahead and grab that. Here we have two Sunn Transducer 128G SP speakers and a pretty sizable magnet. Nice construction. You can tell that it's stamped, but still, it's nice and sturdy. And both of these speakers have date codes of 279 and again 279, which means February of 1979. And that's a pretty good indicator about the quality and vintage of these speakers. So here you can see the original cone. This one had zero issues with it that I can tell. And this is the replaced cone. You can definitely tell the patina, and this one has a bit more flexibility. It's been worked in, and obviously it's seen a bit more use. This one theoretically hasn't seen any use. I assume he's put some noise through it, but either way, it's a brand new speaker cone. By the way, this replacement was performed by an outfit in upstate New York called Vintone. So I'd like to give Vintone a shout out if you're watching this video. Thank you for providing this excellent work. We're going to put it into a cabinet and see how she sounds. So, two 1979 vintage Sunn speakers. These would be in the common 4x12 Sunn cabinets that you see a lot in the 70s. I'm not super informed on who ran these speakers and what albums you would hear these on, but these are fairly common American-made speakers and pretty heavy duty for the era. All right, let's pick a cab and see what these things sound like. All right, I got both of these speakers installed into this 2x12 cabinet that I built with my own two hands, and we have them wired in series here. So that means that both of these 8-ohm speakers now become one 16-ohm load for this amplifier. So 16-ohm dual speaker setup wired in series. Capturing the sound today, we have 3 microphones. We have our MXL Guitar Cube on channel 1, which is a condenser mic. we have our Sennheiser E906 on channel 2, which is a dynamic mic, and then we have my AT4033 SE room mic, which is capturing the sound about 3-4 feet out in front, right smack dab in the center of these speakers. I'll try to do an A-B comparison featuring the MXL and the Audio-Technica mic, and then the Sennheiser and the Audio-Technica mic, just to have one constant in there. But I'm sure that both of these speakers sound different since one of them is a brand new cone, so we'll try to isolate the two speakers and see if we can see how they sound different. And finally, the last link of the chain is all three of those mics are being fed into my Focusrite Scarlett 18i20 interface, which is then being captured by my computer. Alright, let's hear some clean sounds with these classic vintage speakers. Alright, pretty classic bridge sounds with my 1987 Les Paul Custom. Let's go ahead and put it in the neck and hear what it sounds like cleans in the neck. So no effects, nothing, just straight into the Marshall amp. By the way, we are playing through the Marshall today. I figured, hey, if we're going to go vintage, let's go full on Marshall with a Les Paul through these two vintage speakers. So Les Paul, Marshall, speaker cabinet into the DAW. Alright, here's the neck. Alright, let's kick it back into our bridge and hear the Tube Screamer. That sounds great. So far these speakers don't seem afraid of a little bit of gain. Let's go ahead and add some gain. I'm going to play a riff and we're just going to switch between speakers. So first we have the new speaker. Alright, let's go back and hear that same riff through the speaker which has not been modified. Here's something a little bit higher up on the neck. First, let's hear the speaker with the new cone. Alright, let's hear that through the unmodified speaker. All right, so Tube Screamer sounds really good. Let's go ahead and keep climbing up the scale of gain, get into our metal zone, and hear what this thing sounds like. That's one ballsy sounding speaker. I have a small inkling that they might sound pretty similar to my Celestion G12T75 speakers, another personal favorite, but we'll have to do a side-by-side comparison of those two, the Vintage Sunns against kind of newer Chinese-made G12T75s. Alright, let's go ahead and do an A-B comparison. I'll play a riff. First we'll hear it on the new speaker, and then we'll hear it on the speaker that has no replacement parts. Alright, here it is on the other speaker. Finally, let's do one last A-B comparison of something a little bit higher up on the neck on the metal zone. So if you haven't guessed, I love vintage speakers. Do you love vintage speakers? Let me know. If you do, I'd love to hear what you love and what your favorite vintage speaker is. I'd love to hear if you have any experience with this particular speaker because I've had a hell of a time finding some history on it. I found a couple other examples of this specific speaker, some with date codes that are from 77, some with early 80s like 80 or 81. So theoretically there should be quite a few of these kicking around, but I just haven't seen too many of them in my travels. So I'll have to play around with these speakers a little bit more to see what their true character is, but based on my first impressions, I love them. I think they sound great. I'm excited to put them in a few different cabinets to see how they sound with different woods, different structures, you name it. But for now, I would say this is a rousing success. So I went ahead and bought these cheapo speakers, these white van speakers, which, by the way, if you want a good laugh, go ahead and just Google white van speakers and you'll hear people's stories from all kinds of different eras, all kinds of different speakers, you name it. But I guess this is my white van speaker story, and they didn't come from a white van, well, not specifically to me, but they came from a thrift store for 20 bucks where I was able to find something that I consider kind of a gold mine. Vintage 12-inch guitar speakers. What's really interesting to me is that these are vintage guitar speakers. The speakers that I bought are hi-fi-esque speakers. They're obviously not accomplishing hi-fi, but that's what they're aiming to emulate. And these speakers are not hi-fi speakers. They are guitar speakers. So even though I didn't get a chance to play music through those speakers, I'll bet they would have sounded terrible just because that's not what these speakers are meant to do. Luckily for me, I love guitar speakers and I just can't get enough of them. Having said that, I may have a bit too many speakers, so you may see these on Reverb. If so, the link will be in the description. Otherwise, I thought it was a worthy investment to rejuvenate this one speaker, which was absolutely trashed. So that was kind of the downside. Had to replace a cone, invest a little bit of money there. But I think that the result is well worth the investment. Now I not only have one speaker that's a really nice vintage speaker, I have a pair, a matched pair in fact. That to me adds a bit more value, plus the sound of these is really incredible. And actually having a new cone versus an old cone is kind of cool because it gives you a little bit of tonal variety that you wouldn't otherwise get with two similarly aged cones. So let me hear what you have to say about these Sunn speakers or any Sunn gear for that matter. Maybe I can track down some more and give you some more demos. I'd also love to hear what you have to say about your white van speaker story or your friends or your brothers, you name it. And otherwise, if you like this content, feel free to like and subscribe. As always, I hope to see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.